Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and a lot of you saw this week that Porsha Williams from Real Housewives had a warrant issued for her arrest, and a lot of that really stemmed from a confrontation between herself and Kenya Moore, and I will go into that in more detail later, and also we'll talk about why you have two scholars that are really talking about this issue, because I think that this is something that needs to be discussed, particularly those who care about our young girls and their futures. And so to nail this, I brought in the perfect person, Dr. Chenelle Jones. Dr. Jones, she's a criminologist at Ohio Dominican University, and she also just happens to be a black woman, in case you haven't noticed, and she cares about young girls, but she also understands, the important overlap that has occurred between the black community and the criminal justice system, very well, to the point that she's kind of a person that I talk to on a regular basis, so we can understand issues that matter to us. So first, Dr. Jones, I want to ask, how are you doing today?
I'm good as always. Great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Dr. Jones, she should be making fun of me right now, because literally I was boiling over talking to her about this arrest of Porsha Williams, and I was boiling over because I was thinking about my daughters, and as a father of daughters, I'm concerned about the impact that reality TV is having on the way black women are interacting with each other. But then also I'm also the son of a police officer, so I have a respect for people who understand the criminal justice system, like Dr. Jones, and I think that young people have to really be alerted to and made to understand that you can watch this stuff going on TV, but if you decide you want to take the law into your own hands and knock somebody out, there are real implications for this kind of behavior. So, Dr. Jones, please, I'd like to ask you,
right.
First of all, you're a fan. Do you watch Real Housewives at all? Are you familiar with the show?
Yeah. Yes, I watched the entire season, actually. I love the show. The show is entertaining, but it is not reality, but it's very entertaining. So, yeah, I watched it. And I watched all of the episodes leading up to the reunion. I believe the reunion is actually going to air this Sunday, if I remember correctly. But if you look through the entire season, you saw this antagonistic relationship between Porsha and Kenya, with Porsha not being the brightest person and making some comments. She talked about the Underground Railroad. We all remember that, where she said she thought it was a real railroad, and it wasn't. And you saw her marriage pretty much fall apart, but the entire thing, after a while, we learned it all was, just a facade. There was really no love there, and Cordell was kind of controlling. But during all of this, through her ups and downs, the good, and constantly heard Kenya in the background talking about Porsha, talking about her intelligence, saying that she's not smart, that she's dumb, she's kind of ditzy, this, that, and the other, and egging Porsha on. So I guess it all sort of blew up at this reunion show, where I guess Porsha just couldn't take Kenya's remarks and comments anymore. I saw the preview. They got up in each other's face, arguing and fussing and, whatever. And then apparently at some point it turned into like a full out fight between the two girls. And what I hear is that Porsha had Kenya down on the ground. They were pulling hair and literally beating each other up. It was a pretty,
did they
heated fight.
Film all this? Are they going to show this?
I think they're going to show some of it. I do think they're going to show some of it, because it looked like in some of the previews there was some footage. So I'm just interested to see what does air on Sunday. And because then that speaks to a bigger issue. You have kids that start to see this. And they see it on Housewives. They'll see it on, they see it on Bad Girls Clubs. But they see these fights all the time on TV. And what happens is they think that they can then get into a fight and there are no consequences. And at the end of the day, when on TV we see the fights and then we see everybody come together and make up and, they go about their merry ways. But in reality, you hit somebody, well, that's assault. You hit somebody and then you have a weapon, that's aggravated assault. And those are felonies. And you can be arrested and charged with a crime. And most people can go to jail for that. And this is what happens. A lot of kids, they just think, oh, well, they fought on TV. I can fight. This girl talked about me. Let me just get her right real quick. And, you know, that it doesn't really happen like that, because when you fight, police are called and you're going to jail. And then before you know it, you have charges filed against you, and you have that on your record. And a lot of people don't think about that. You know, they just think about the here and now. If somebody says something about me, I need to get them back because they, you know, talk about my reputation or whatever, and that's on the line. And that is unfortunate. So we get to the point where we have these reality shows really just painting this terrible picture of African American women, and then African American women, some girls, young girls, seeing this, and then they react and they reiterate, do the same thing that they saw on the TV, and it becomes just this pervasive, you know, mindset that violence is okay, and then violence is not okay, you know. So we never want to promote that. And what we have are these TV shows, World Star, Bad Girls Clubs, Housewives, you know, all of these painting these horrible images of African American women. When in reality, if you look at the number of African American women who are in college, they far exceed any other demographic who are in college. That's what we should be seeing. And then, you know, they are the lowest represented in prisons. Well, I guess white women would be the lowest, in comparison to African American women. But, you know, a small percentage of them are in prisons and technically arrested. So we don't want to see, you know, this promotion of violence on TV. It's never good for anybody. And that's really what we have been seeing, because that's what sells. It's what's entertaining. But the problem is distinguishing that from reality is very difficult.
You know, I can say that it hurts me to the core to see, you know, these big corporations making so much money, ruining the culture amongst young black girls. I remember having a conversation with a young lady I mentor, and she was in high school and she was going through some stuff, and emotionally and otherwise. And she did, you know, the father wasn't in the home too, which I don't care what anybody says. I think we do need our dads, and we need to keep them, and dads need to stay. I don't care what anybody says about that. And so I remember when I was talking to her, I said, "Why are you being so mean? Why do why does it seem that every time somebody says something to you now, you're ready to cuss them out? You know, I knew you when you were little and you were so sweet. You are a sweet person. What's going on?" And she said, "I can't help it." She said, "All these girls always want to fight me. Every time I go to school, I got to fight somebody." And people don't understand that this is hurtful to young women. I mean, this bullying that they're promoting, I mean, it's leading to depression, I'm sure addictions, maybe even suicide in some cases, in many cases. And right. And what I'm really looking for, what I'm really hoping is one day that somebody, that if some tragedy occurs, you know, from some girl being bullied and she kills herself, I want her parents to sue one of these shows, you know, just to, you know, because I don't know how you can make that connection. I don't even know if it's possible. People sue for all kinds of stuff. And my argument is that they have to be held accountable for what they're doing to the culture. And, you know, and I agree with your point. I hear exactly what you're saying, that even beyond the impact that it's having on the culture, when you have young women emulating this, they have to be warned that if you decide, oh, I'm going to show that blankety blank, I'm going to put this bottle upside her head, you will go to prison for that. I mean, you know, in fact, the rapper, the Brat, I think it's pronounced Da Brat. Didn't she go to prison? Da Brat. Yeah, she went to I think she went to prison, and I think she lost a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because she decided in the club she was going to put a bottle upside some girl's head. And it sounds gangster. It sounds cool. It sounds like it's the thing you're supposed to do. But don't let the streets persuade you to do something that's going to ruin your life. People don't understand that. And that was why I wanted to talk to you about that, because, you know, you're a criminologist. You know what can happen when someone's convicted of assault. So, you know, Dr. Jones, you know, as a woman, and you know, you watch the shows and it's okay to watch them. I think that, you know, we should watch what we like. And even I watch some of the stuff because I watch it to try to understand what people like about it. And what I've noticed about these reality shows is that it's like a healthy person eating greasy food or sugary food. If they taste a little bit of it, they're going to like it. They're going to want some more. Right. And so the shows are good. They're addictive. They're interesting. You know, how do we balance between that which is entertainment, versus sort of taking a stand and saying, look, we can be entertained by this, but we're not going to let this influence our culture. I mean, what do you think we can say to young black women to help them kind of distance themselves from this psychologically?
Right. Well, at the end of the day, you have to draw a line somewhere, and you have to be able to distinguish, the reality shows from reality. And you also need to know, okay, they're going to beat each other up, but they're not going to go to jail here. But in reality, you beat somebody up, you're probably going to go to jail. And what I'm guessing here is with the Kenya Porsha situation, I think she pressed charges. It's probably going to be a warrant issue. There's a warrant issue for her arrest. I don't know if she turned herself in, but I believe they're going to settle that out of court. That's just that's what I think is going to happen. But everything doesn't always pan out that way. And so, at the end of the day, you just have to be able to distinguish reality from, what's real from what's not real. And this is where parenting is so important, and why it is so important for parents to, at their best, try to monitor what your kids are watching and do that. But then go back and, if you're going to watch it with them, you're going to let them watch it with them. But then tell them, this is not really going to happen. This really wouldn't happen in real life. And how would you handle this situation if this was you in it? So then it turns into a time where you can watch it and be entertained, but there's also teaching going on at the same time. I think that's where you have to, really start to deal, especially with young black girls, because they're so impressionable and they can be influenced by so many other areas, especially TV. So that's why I think it is critical to be able to draw that line from, this is TV and this is reality. They do that, but you're going to do this. Don't do that. And I think that's really, really important there, and how we deal with that.
I think that's a great point. I know that there is, the same young lady I mentioned that I mentor, sometimes, I remember a couple of times where we will either watch the reality show or, and by the reality show, I'm talking about either Love and Hip Hop, or it might be Basketball Wives, or Real Housewives, or whatever. And what we'll do is, I think sometimes watching these shows can be an opportunity to really learn and teach by talking about what you shouldn't do, right? I think anybody who's watching Love and Hip Hop can see that Love and Hip Hop really is an extraordinary blueprint for how to ruin your life. How to destroy your life through bad choices, dysfunctional relationships, abusive situations, etc., and coming back to things that are ultimately going to harm you. And it's really sad, because what it's kind of doing is it's glorifying mental illness. Most of the individuals on some of these shows, particularly Love and Hip Hop, they come from abused, battered backgrounds. They come from trauma as children, right? So you see this acted out in adulthood, and it just becomes the ugliest mess you've ever seen. Like you've got the lady Mimi who's doing the sex tape, who's got the daughter, and now she's selling the sex tape, and she's in a relationship with some guy now. She used to be in a relationship with Stevie J, who has 1,000 kids with 1 million women, and is $1 billion behind in child support. And I remember talking to somebody, and it's funny. It was a simple statement, but it's interesting how rare you hear anybody say this. You're not going to hear anybody really talk about this on TV or anywhere. I said, so if a man has 6, 7 kids with 4 or 5 women, do you know how much unprotected sex that man probably has had in his life? Do you know how many STDs he probably has? I'm not talking about.
Stevie J is probably a walking disease.
Right. And here's the funny thing. It's like he's not the only one. He's not the only one.
He's not the only.
There is an army of germ-infested people that are prepared to destroy your life. And don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna judge it one way or the other in terms of talking about people's sexuality. I mean, I'm also a liberal in terms of my thinking about the freedom of people to express love and sex in a way that's natural, because I believe love and sex are the most powerful forces in the universe. I mean, we're all, you and I are sitting here because somebody had sex, right? Everybody watching is sitting there because somebody had sex. And so it's happening all the time. Nobody really talks about it, and I don't think we talk about it enough. But at the same time, when you talk about something that powerful, the power of love and sex, the ability to literally create human life, you have to realize that with something that powerful, you have to have responsibility. Right? Like if you're talking about the president of the United States who has access to a button where he can launch a nuclear weapon, he has to be a responsible person to have that much power. So when you look at the power of sex and you see people using it irresponsibly, spraying their penis in any working vagina within a 100-mile radius because the Lil Wayne told him you're supposed to get it popping, you're supposed to have 14 women at one time and all this other stuff.
Lil Wayne wants to do every girl in the world, though. Remember his song? He wants to do every girl.
I want every girl in the world, right? And the thing is, I can't judge that. I mean, I think that's a raw expression of his male sexuality and that insatiable appetite for sexual expression. I'm not judging that, but at the same time, while you might be able to appreciate the idea of wanting every girl in the world, a smart man realizes that having every girl in the world is probably not good for you, not good for your health, not good for the mental health of those children that are going to come out of those relationships where all you're thinking about is getting it popping and you're not thinking about actually being a responsible father or even having the resources to provide for those children emotionally, financially and otherwise, right? So I think that those shows really what I think we should do. Look, here's the thing. As black, and I'm going to let you get the last word because I know I've said a lot here. As black people, what I believe we need to do is, look, if you like the show, fine. I'm not going to tell you not to watch it. Watch it. If you want to watch it with your kids, if that's what you do, fine. I'm not going to watch it with my kids, but if you want to watch it with yours, I don't judge that. But if you do, use these shows as opportunities to teach them how not to live your life. The best lessons I ever received from my dad and from my uncle were I watched my uncle do all the things that a black man should not do if he wants to have a good life. I learned valuable lessons from that. My father used to take me places and point out people in different situations and tell me stories about tragedies of his friends that got hooked on drugs, his friends that got into alcoholism, his friends that were financially devastated. And he would say, here's what you don't want to do, in order to avoid those kinds of outcomes. And the fear of those things happening is what pushed me in the other direction. So, and in fact, I had a baby when I was 18. See, I'm not perfect. I had a baby when I was 18 years old. And my brother actually told me that part of the reason that he saved his virginity and he kind of took his time and he's very careful with women was because he didn't want to end up where I was, right? I'm thinking that's great, so you can learn by opposites. So I think if you're going to watch these shows with your kids, make sure they're learning by opposites and not emulating this crazy this crazy shit that we're seeing. Sometimes I hate cussing. I can't help it. I had to let that out. This stuff that we're seeing on TV. So, Dr. Jones, I'll let you get the last word in. Like I said, I've said a lot, but I want people to hear what you have to say.
Well, I was just going to, just pretty much piggyback on the same thing that you're saying, because one of the things that we know, it's actually called social learning theory, and people do learn from watching others. And, you can learn and you can learn by watching others to do what they did, or you can learn by watching others to say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like that. So you learn. But that's social learning theory. It was presented by Van Doren in 1961, and he did it again in 63. So, there is empirical evidence that suggests that we do learn from what we see. So what we have to do is say, okay, these kids are going to watch these shows. If you're going to let your kids, if you're going to continue to watch them, okay, know that you need to be able to separate reality from the reality shows. You need to understand that what's on TV is what's on TV, but you should not be doing that in your real life because there are consequences that you are probably going to have to encounter. And those consequences are if you're going to fight somebody, you're probably going to get arrested and charged with assault. So you don't want to go replicating what you see on TV. And you need to teach your children that. And we especially need to make sure we tell black girls this because the last thing that black women need is another mechanism or way for somebody to tarnish the image of black girls. We already do enough of that. And so we need to start changing the way that we see each other, the way that we portray ourselves. And so that's why I think it's really important. I love the shows. I watch them all the time. I watch them. And so, if people are going to continue to watch them, I think that's, it's fine. But just make sure that you understand that this is not real. It's a TV show. And your life should not be a replication of the TV show. It should be your own path, what you're doing. And that should be of, success and doing good things and building up the African American community and teaching kids who are watching or anybody else who's watching it, hey, this ain't real. This will never happen. And, being able to distinguish between the two. So that's my final thoughts on that, and hopefully we'll see how this all pans out with this Porsha Kenya situation.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Well, what I would say for people to remember is that, Porsha is gonna stay out of jail most likely because they need her for the show, so they will get her some expensive lawyers to protect her.
They will.
But that won't happen to you. So when that woman is spreading rumors about you and you get the temptation to bust a bottle upside her head, just realize that Porsha ain't gonna go to prison, but they will send your black butt to jail. So thank you so much, Dr. Jones. I truly appreciate all of your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.net. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.